Not.
Welcome back to Two Guys and the Bible. Cody,
I'm here.
it's been a little while since we've sat down together, and well, it hasn't, but it didn't work out. But anyway, it's been a while since you've seen us here.
Technical problems.
Back in our...
Which isn't fully true. We did go dove hunting.
We went dove hunting the first week
And then
that there wasn't a show.
Right.
And then we did sit down
Yeah.
and record a show the next week, but the audio was
Terrible.
terrible.
Just terrible.
And then
Just terrible.
took a little family vacation last week,
Yep.
and now we're back
We're here.
with new microphones.
Brand new, spanking new microphones.
Our sound should be a lot better.
Hopefully it is.
Provided
I don't know if
by
it is.
a dear brother and supporter of our show. So we're very thankful for that.
Yeah, man.
And we still have to do our 50 subscriber giveaway.
Yes, we do.
We've promised the folks a t-shirt.
We haven't
and,
got there. We need to be men of our word.
You've dropped the ball on this. I'm just kidding. I'm just picking on you. We have. So we're still going to do a t-shirt giveaway. We just have to come up with a good design. Anyway, welcome back.
They're all, like, everyone else has really good designs, and so then
And then you
you
just
wanna
have to steal someone.
Yeah, you gotta steal them.
Like this is from Wrath and Grace. It says every knee shall bow.
Just be lucky I was about to put that on this morning.
I was wondering about that.
We were going to be
wearing the same
Twinkies.
thing. I started wearing my Semper Reformata shirt, but I already wore that one. That's my favorite one.
Next month.
I love that shirt. But anyway, we're gonna have a shirt giveaway soon to one of you, 52, 53 subscribers, something like that. So we appreciate you guys watching our show every time we upload, subscribing and liking and sharing. And here we are, buddy. We're back in the saddle again.
Mm-hmm. Ready to go.
Are you excited about our conference in October?
I'm pumped. I've done this. This is the seventh. We had to do some counting, some math, when Brother Mac started coming for a conference. It's been 7 years, and we've always sought to have other churches come that were like-minded, and that has always been a little bit of a difficulty. And so it's exciting to have two other churches do this together with us, and you guys are gracious enough to host it and be a part of that. So yeah, I'm excited about it.
Me too.
October 23rd, 24th, and 25th.
Yes, it's going to be at our church, Lake Athens Baptist Church. That's the address. Is I'll show a little picture of our flyer here right now. There you go. Right there. It has the address. It has the dates. It has the times. It has all that stuff on there. We're excited about it. Our church is excited about it. I know Brother Josh and his church is excited. We're teaming up this year with Cody and his church, and I believe God's going to bless this conference. So Brother Mac Tomlinson and Brother Michael Durham are going to be the speakers. There'll be some good music, good worship, and it's going to be 3 nights of discussing revival God's way. And I'm guessing what we mean when you guys came up with this topic or this theme, it was basically centered around, obviously we need revival in this nation and in the world. But it's Mac's side of it's going to be like what was happening historically when God brought about these great revivals, right?
Yeah, you could maybe throw it in a category of like a theology of the Bible, of revival. Like, what is it? Because I think there's a lot of confusion, and then there's a lot of abuse of it, right? You go up to Kansas City or whatever, and they're having like revival all the time.
Revival fun.
Whatever.
3,000.
Yeah. And so a theology, just an understanding, and then historically what that means. Like, what did these real historical revivals, what was kind of, what led up to them? What was the emphasis, right, in these? Conviction of sin, the reintroducing of preaching of the Word of God that seemed to be lost. Mm-hmm. So that's what he'll do. And then Michael will preach more what I call kind of your revivalistic messages, which like you're referring to, messages of holiness, walking with God, repentance, faith, and those types of things. So, yeah, that's because we not only do we need, and my hope, my prayer is that that revival would happen because we need revival, and revivals for the church.
Yeah, absolutely.
To bring the church from where it is to where it should be.
Where it should be.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because the church can fall into these low states, and I think we're in one of those. And what God does in revival and His sovereignty is He brings them up to what I would call a normal living of Christianity.
Yeah.
So
anyway, if you can make it, you are officially invited. This is your invitation, right, Cody?
Mm-hmm.
Come on down to Athens, Texas, October 23rd, 24th, and 25th. If you can't make it every day, hey, there's no problem with that. Part of this conference is on Sunday morning, on the Lord's Day. If you want to go back to your church that day, hey, go ahead.
Mm-hmm.
That's great. But yeah, we hope you can at least make it for a day.
There's a Facebook page.
Yes, we have. Y'all have created a Facebook page where you can also watch it live.
Yes.
What's it called? What's the name of the Facebook page?
I have it right here. Hold on. Fall Bible Conference 2020, Athens, Texas.
Okay, Fall Bible Conference 2020, Athens, Texas. You can just lock that page, and if you can't attend in person, it will be streamed live there. All right.
I have some people in Washington State that want to stream it live, so yeah.
You told me we have a fellow coming down from Canada, huh?
Yeah, it's supposed. Yeah, I don't.
Canada.
Hey, better ease up on the old. I was only like 2 hours away from Canada. There are some people that lived where I lived. Like you would think, are we already there? Are we already in Canada? We must be close.
We're a bit there.
Yeah, pretty close.
We're a bit in Canada.
Yeah. Real quick, my wife would laugh because there were people who would say my name. They would call me Code. That's whatever. And when they'd said it, it sounded very much like they were from.
Yeah, Code.
Hey, Code. Yeah. And it's like, wait, hold on. I thought that. Where are we at right now? Yeah. So, I was close enough to Canada to get some of that. So anyway,
yeah. All right, Cody. Well, let's get into it.
Yeah. So we want to talk today about the left's. I would probably call it. I don't really know what I would call it. It's an abuse of the word science. They just throw it around like it's like a filler word.
Here's what they are. They're scientism evangelists. It's a weird way to put it. But
they're pagan, first of all. It's like if you listen to what they say about it, if you would just profess that global warming is an issue, we'll solve global warming.
Well, that, and you will no longer be anti-science.
Right. Just by simply saying the words.
Yeah. This is something I've been talking about for a few years now, and I'm not the only one. Other people have too. But the left has adopted this idea that science is always on their side. Mm-hmm. And every single thing, every single little crook and cranny of their worldview, science is on their side. Mm-hmm. And anybody that speaks or disagrees with anything they believe is therefore anti-science.
Yeah, they would say what this article says, conservatives don't believe in science. Republicans have a war on science.
See, that doesn't even make sense. Does it believe in science? You know what science is? Science is a methodology based on observation and experimentation. Mm. How can you not believe in a methodology that's based on observation? Mm-hmm. That doesn't even make any sense.
I think what they're saying, and they're not saying it, but they're saying it when they do this, is we have scientists that are on our side that we deem as they're the ones that are right and correct about all this. You don't believe in our scientists.
Right.
It really comes down, it's just like in theology sometimes, right? You have a camp here and a camp here. And what they've done is they've said, this is our camp, and we're the right camp, and you're a denier of that, and you're at war with our camp, and ours is the only one that's right. And they've just said it by saying it's about science.
Yeah.
Which is...
But it's not.
It has nothing to do with science.
No. It's based on a set of presuppositions that have created a worldview that helps pad their conscience a little bit for their agenda that they want to accomplish. Because the same people that are saying, conservatives are anti-science are also saying that there's no such thing as male and female.
Yeah, they're also they're also denying the science of how far we've come along to be able to know, in depth about a child in the womb and life and when it begins and all of those things. And yet they deny that because it doesn't fit their narrative.
Right.
And their science says that a male can be a female can be a male. They're also, their science, so this is what's amazing. So you talk about they'll throw out the science thing when it comes to these wildfires. Well, I lived where wildfires, it happens.
Yeah.
And no, the problem is what they did is they denied science and stopped managing the fuel source for fires.
Right.
And so then when they have these giant fires, they say, well, it's because of global warming, and if you don't believe that, then you're a science denier.
Right.
No, it's because you stopped harvesting millions of tons of fuel.
Right.
For a fire to just
keep going. Yeah.
And so I didn't do well in science. I didn't even hang out in science class.
These fires.
But it makes sense. Yeah. Yes. Also that if they didn't light the fires, we probably wouldn't have that happen. But anyway, it's utter nonsense, and this is why it's important. They're using it this is their campaign slogan.
Right.
This election. It is. If Trump was not an evil, wicked, stupid science denier, California wouldn't be on fire, and people would... Joe Biden literally said...
The polar bears would be safe.
Yeah, Joe Biden literally said no one would have died of the coronavirus. Everyone would be alive. If he wasn't such an evil science denier. This
is really what it boils down to for me. And maybe it's not fair. But this is really what it boils down to. The more I hear somebody saying, I'm all about science, science, science. You just don't believe science. I believe science. Science is on my side. The more credibility they lose right off the bat. Mm-hmm. Because every time I've had a conversation with somebody like this or see something on TV, these people are just spouting out things that fit their worldview and they're calling it science. That's all they're doing.
But here's what's even worse. When you listen to people in the government talk about science, they don't even give specifics. They just say the word science.
Right.
And it's
and that's what I'm saying. They just use the word.
And then if you bring some science that's legitimate with facts and percentages and everything, they've laid it out for us, and then they go, yeah, that's not science.
Yeah.
Oh, because it's from the wrong scientist,
right.
Or from the wrong doctor, or whatever it might be. Right. Chuck Schumer said, these people, he said that this whole Supreme Court thing, what's at stake is climate protection. The climate is in danger.
RBG died.
Yes, and if we fill it with a Republican who is, remember, Republican / anti-science,
right?
Our climate's in danger.
Man. Well, here silly me is just thinking, that God's sovereign over our climate, and everything else.
Yes.
You know, I'm sorry. Yeah.
Well, I'm not trying to be too simplistic here, but God promised after the flood that He would never wipe the earth with a flood ever again.
Yeah.
So when they tell me
that water world's going to happen,
I'm going to tell them no. And they're going to say, why? And I'm going to say, because of this book. And then they're going to be like, well, you're a science denier. Well, my God's in control and in charge of this whole thing that you call science anyways.
Can we even just rewind a little bit? Look at this apologetically. Like, I always do this anyway, you know that. What is science? Science is dependent on some things.
Sure it is.
To even be able to do science, some things have to exist, right?
Yeah, like you and a brain and God.
Right. I'm building up to that,
Okay,
Cody.
sorry.
You always want to throw out the punchline. I got to, you know.
I'm sorry. I
just want to
took
lay
it
this
from
out.
him.
Okay, so to do science, to observe and experiment on things, some things have to pre-exist so we can observe and experiment. One, objective reality and truth has to exist. Facts have to exist, right? You have to have objective truth. You have to have objective facts. You have to have the ability to reason and use logic and all this stuff. Hold on, you stay right there. You have to have what's called induction, knowing that that the experiments you're doing today, you can only do them based on what you've learned in the past, right? So that means there's a constance there. There's there's order here. If we can only do experiments based on what we've learned from the past, that means something's in control of all this. All right. I'll say all that to say this. Science is dependent upon all those things. And you know what all those things are dependent on? God. If there's no God, we'd have no ability to do science.
Right.
Because there's no truth, there's no logic, there's no facts, there's no proof. The proof that God exists is that if He didn't exist, you wouldn't be able to prove anything at all. Anyway, you may...
No, that was my only question. I knew the answer, but I was just posing the question. Facts and truth are dependent upon there being God. If you don't have a God who is truth, then you don't have anything to base any of that off of anyways. And so
they're inconsistent. Most of them would probably deny God. Or at least, if they believe in some kind of deity, there'll be deists, like the clockmaker idea. Maybe God kickstarted this thing, but He has nothing to do with creation anymore, so whatever. But that still leaves a world that's ungoverned and unguided and purposeless. Right? So they claim that science is on their side while the whole time they're rejecting the precondition necessary for science, which is God.
Right.
And so really, they're just talking in circles.
Well, and for most of them, at least the politicians anyways, the scientist will try to have some things where they've observed this, or they'll try to bring things in. Some of them will. But these politicians, they just say words. And then when you get down to the actual facts of, like, if you took climate change, or you took the virus that's happening now, or you took transgenderism, or whatever these things are, you actually have people in those communities that are not conservative, but are true to science, that say that's wrong, that's wrong, that's wrong, and that's wrong, but it's denied, and because it doesn't fit a narrative. And so now you always need to know that, like, politicians are going to use something to fit the narrative. They're going to use it to try to get their agenda pushed through. And what they've done is they've looked out at the world and they said, if you wanted to take specifically the virus, because that's what's going on right now, and the election at the same time, and they said, the reason why you need to vote for Joe Biden is because he's not a science denier. Joe Biden couldn't spell science right now. I don't mean that in a mean way. I mean, the dude has got some problems. But yet, we're supposed to just... oh, well, Trump, he's just an evil, wicked, bad man because he doesn't believe in science. and you just want to raise your hand, but could you tell me, like, what exactly do you mean he doesn't believe in science?
Right. That's, again...
It's just saying words.
That's the dumbest thing, though, when they say somebody doesn't believe in science. It doesn't even make sense.
Right.
Like, what do you mean? I don't believe in a methodology?
Yeah.
What are you talking about? Yes, I do. I just don't buy into all your jargon.
Yeah.
I don't buy into the fact you're standing there telling me I'm a science denier and you voted for Bruce Jenner to be Woman of the Year.
Right.
And I keep using that example. But come on. Give me a break.
Well,
you hold to evolution, right? Despite the fact that evolution, Darwinian evolution, has been proven impossible.
If you take one of the first steps of science, observation, they must have been blind and deaf when they did this.
The observation?
Yeah. Because what they're saying their science has come up with is that a man can be a woman. How?
Right.
What did you observe that truly happened?
Right.
And does happen?
Right.
You didn't.
No.
So therefore, you didn't even use a scientific
But they'll
method.
say it's science. See, that's the whole point, guys. Like, the more these people claim science is on their side, they're all on science, everybody else is anti, the more credibility they lose. Mm-hmm. I mean, they have no credibility to begin with. Any rational thinking person can look at the left and know that they're just throwing things out, trying to find places for it to stick. Mm-hmm. And unfortunately, what they say does land. And some people buy into it.
And let's just, for the sake of being fair, it's not just the people on the left. There's people on the right.
Right.
They're the same way.
Yeah.
And we're not here to say that left, right, middle, whatever. We're here to say there is truth. God is sovereign over all of this truth. He is truth himself. We have the scriptures to guide and teach us. And whether it's someone on the left or someone on the right, I'm going to side on the party. But because conservatives have more of they're at least influenced in their thinking and their ideology,
right,
comes from more of the scriptures.
They use more of the biblical worldview.
Yes.
Than the left does.
Than the left does. And that's
even
why.
if they're not Christians.
They have a biblical worldview. They
still operate from this worldview. Mm-hmm. And so...
Which is a good thing.
Yeah, absolutely. And I would say even the left, in some sense, they may not operate from our worldview, but they do steal from our worldview.
Yeah.
Because they do go out and fight for what they believe is right and what they believe is wrong. In order to fight for what they believe is right and what they believe is wrong, they have to steal from our worldview to do it.
Do you know who their greatest scientist is?
Bill Nye? I don't know.
Greta Thunberg.
Oh, yeah. Yes, yeah.
Was she like 10?
Yeah, I don't know.
That's their scientist. They put her on CNN.
Yeah. I kind of feel bad for her, to be honest with you.
Because she's just a pawn.
Yeah, she is, and her...
It's the same thing as...
I don't know what her family life is like, but those in charge of her need to be ashamed.
Sure. I think... I tell people all the time, the other person I feel sorry for right now is, to be honest with you, Biden.
Yeah.
I do too. I mean, I don't say things about him being old and senile in a derogatory way. It's like he is literally being propped up like Weekend at Bernie's.
Yeah.
And he doesn't even know, like, the guy needs to be taken care of, not propped up.
Yeah.
But it's all to push a narrative.
They're so far invested now in it, they can't do anything about it. Speaking of all this stuff, so we probably should address the Supreme Court vacancy now with the passing of RBG, Ruth Bader Ginsburg.
Why don't we get, like, only when you're famous do we take your name and we make it this
I
thing.
am CA.
That's true. I don't have anything.
I'm Pastor CA now.
You're a pretty big deal at Lake Athens.
Anyway, yeah. So
you got a vacancy. This lady has passed. Yeah, that's about as far as I'm going to go with that. She was, according to her ideology and decisions that she made,
The way she voted.
and the way she voted, seemed to be a very ungodly, unrighteous, and wicked person who needed Christ, just as I do and you do, but who needed to be saved and converted and brought to repentance and faith.
You know, we all need Christ.
Mm-hmm.
We're all born totally depraved, wretched sinners. If it weren't for the grace of God in my life, I'd make the most evil person look like a choir boy. But some people are given positions of power while they're still dead in their sins.
Mm-hmm.
Right? And that's very dangerous.
And some people are given power while they're still dead in their sins, yet God reigns on the just and the unjust, and there's common grace. Some of that sin is restrained, and then some is not restrained. And so, anyway.
Yeah, I wouldn't say you have to be a born-again person to serve on the Supreme Court. But hopefully you experience some of God's common grace.
Well, and I think one of the founders wrote that all of our institution, the Declaration of Independence, the Constitution, everything it's for a religious, moral person. You can't, an immoral, irreligious person cannot operate. They'll fight against, and that's exactly what they're doing. Yeah. Because the way it's formed, the biblical worldview that formed it demands that a person have some form of religion and morals in order to govern in it and function in it. And
you have to care for people.
Yeah.
All people.
Mm-hmm.
And it's obvious that from her record that she didn't. Now, I'm not going to sit here and bash her. I think it's sad. I know it's sad. It's heartbreaking when someone perishes in their sin.
Yeah, absolutely.
We know what happens at the final judgment.
Mm-hmm.
Having said that, when God removes someone from a position of power that does not have people they represent best interest in mind, that is an act of grace and mercy for those people that are under their.
Yeah, so I'm not trying to compare, but let's just use this illustration. You go to a country where a wicked man's in power. You know, it's a total whatever, monarchy or whatever. And it's oppressive to the people. Like you're saying, it's not for their good. When that person is removed, it's a relief. There's relief.
Yeah, that's the way it's been throughout human history.
Mm-hmm. And so for some, it's not a relief that she's gone because you take the woman who just literally lost her mind on that video. It's the end of the world because now there's this.
Because that's their idol.
Yes, and it's this vacancy that could possibly be filled by someone that they do not agree with, which would then bring they would call it a form of oppression on them because they don't believe in that worldview. But for others it is. So.
And that's just not the case for this. It's any kind of person in a position of power. Mm-hmm. It could be your boss at work. Mm-hmm. Right? You have a wicked, depraved boss at work, it's going to make your work life miserable. Mm-hmm. But one or two things could happen that could change that. One, God could convert him, and then, or her. Mm-hmm. And of course, that's what we want first and foremost. That's tremendous. Or I could remove them. Mm-hmm. And sometimes that happens.
Yeah, and I think with this situation, hopefully, by the grace of God, unfortunately, our system should not function this way. It was not made to function this way.
It shouldn't even be that big of a deal.
No, really it shouldn't, because they used to just put judges, both parties would put a judge up, because both parties at one point in time had an understanding of what the judge was supposed to be doing and not pushing some political agenda. But now the Supreme Court is like, it's the place where all of the ideological battle gets settled for some. And so we are in that type of a system. And so, okay, that's the system you want to go off of, then guess what? We need to put someone in there that has...
Yeah, and so one or two things are going to happen. Or three, I guess. One, we're getting another radical, progressive, leftist justice. We're going to get a conservative justice. Or we're going to get another moderate. It just kind of depends on what kind of mood they're in is going to be how they decide to vote any particular day.
Right.
I think of a Gorsuch.
Yeah, we all thought he was going to be,
it just depends on what kind of mood he's in. So either way, here's what I'll say. God is sovereign over who's in that court now. And he's going to be sovereign over who's in that court in the future. God is sovereign over who our president is now. He's going to be sovereign over who our president is in the future.
It's not the end of the world like some are making it out to be.
Now, see, we have the Christian worldview backing us to know that. Like, if Biden wins in November, takes over in January, Christians should not lose their minds.
No.
Because, listen, we don't want him to win, don't get me wrong. But we understand that we have a God who is sovereign over the entire universe. And it doesn't matter who's in the White House. He's going to orchestrate things as he sees fit.
Right.
So...
Yeah, and it's the same thing with this position. We live in this world, we want things to happen, right? That's the best, that would bring the greatest good to a people. But we also understand that we live in a fallen world and that may not be the case. And God is sovereign over all of it. And we can trust Him, we can know that He's faithful and right in whatever He's doing. And then we have to be completely honest. I tell people this all the time. Just based on this one sin alone in this country of murdering babies, we deserve judgment beyond judgment. And that's just one.
Yes.
I don't quote Billy Graham very often, but he said, if God doesn't judge us, then He'll have to raise up Sodom and Gomorrah and apologize. Well, let me tell you something that God's not going to do.
Right.
He's not going to apologize.
Right.
So.
But that's a profound statement.
Very profound.
And it shows the reality of our wickedness in this nation. 70 million almost.
And so to think that it's always going to go well for us all the time, putting a wicked man in power may be the judgment of God.
Yeah.
So.
All right. Well, that's the news for the day. What you got there? You got some Bible for the folks?
I do. We want to hopefully take theology, the study of God, the Scriptures, His will, and make it less intimidating. I think sometimes when people hear systematic theology or whatever, they sometimes, well, that's for, people that are like in the ministry and pastoring. And what we want to do is try to take theological subjects in a very orderly manner and teach some of these things. What does God teach about this? What does He say about Himself? What does He say about everything in life in general? What does He have to say about it? And in Psalm 111, it says that great are the works of the Lord, studied by all who delight in them. And those who delight in God will study the works of God because they delight
Right.
in Him, to know Him and to walk with Him. And so what we want to do is take a subject each week for a good amount of time and show what the Bible says about it in a very simple but yet and clear way, and teach in a systematic theology, in a sense, in a condensed, like theology in bite size, I guess, if you wanted to, bite-sized theology. It's easy to swallow, easy to take, and
that's two big words: systematic and theology. Systematic just means in an orderly fashion.
Right.
We're going to do things in a system, building up to where you have a good foundational theology. And theology, all that is the study of God or who God is. So we're going to systematically, step by step, study and look at the person and work and word of God. And while we're doing that, we're going to discuss doctrinal truths, the Christian life, the character and nature of God, the character and nature of man, the person of Jesus Christ, sin, faith, grace, eschatology,
whatever.
all of it. And it's going to be grand.
Well, and it's going to be purposeful because you can't know and walk with God and worship Him if you don't know Him.
Yeah.
That's simple enough. So if you want to be a person who loves and worships God more, you need to study and know more of Him. They're not separate. If you want even your emotions to be stirred in any way, to joy, to happiness, to whatever, to delight in Him, it has to come from more and more study of Him.
Yeah. You know,
they're not two separate things.
You know what really puts a bug in my gravy? Let's say you know what really puts a bug in my gravy. But you know what really puts a bug in my gravy? Is when somebody, especially a preacher or something like that, says, you know, I'm not a theologian. You know?
Then sit down.
Right.
Sit down.
Because let's look, everyone is a theologian.
Either a bad one or a good one.
Yeah, you're
That's
either
the
bad.
punchline again.
Yeah,
Sorry.
Get off camera. I'm gonna have to have a talk with him. But
yes, you're
everyone's a theologian.
Right.
And if the preacher doesn't even know that, he probably doesn't need to be preaching.
Yeah.
But you watching this right now, you are a theologian.
And it guides the way that you view politics. It guides the way that you deal with your family. It guides the decisions you make in your business. The theology, knowing and understanding who God is and His will and what He says about things, touches every area of your life. And so if you don't know Him, then you're going to walk around as a very bad theologian with bad ethics, with bad morality, with bad living and bad character. So that's why we're going to start the series, The Systematic Theology. And you can tell everybody that, man, you've been watching this series, Two Guys in the Bible, and you've been learning about systematic theology and all this stuff. That you can share it with your friends and your family. Yep. And they can like and subscribe. And y'all can come to our conference on October 23rd, 24th, and 25th and worship with us. Hear some good old preaching. And it's going to be phenomenal, right, Cody? Yep, I'm all about it. All right. Well, we pray that the rest of your guys' day and week would be honoring and glorifying to God, that whatever you find yourself doing, whether it's eating, drinking, working, that you do it for the glory of God. All right. See you next time.